Via Skype by political analyst Ralph Mathekga. Ralph, good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time on eNCA. So we are seeing now political parties coming out, specifically the DA, to raise their unhappiness about this lockdown that seems to be extended longer than they initially hoped would be the case. What are we seeing play out here, especially given that context that, when this pandemic really hit our shores, you saw various political parties pledging their support for government and particularly President Cyril Ramaphosa?
Good morning, Clement, and good morning to viewers at home. I think that what we are seeing indeed, it is a shift of attitude from the side of opposition parties here. And I think you point correctly to how the whole thing began. Initially, we have seen political parties, opposition parties across the political board, all coming out and supporting the president when the president announced the initial lockdown. But we are now seeing a different tide, with the DA actually being one of the most prominent opposition parties, actually breaking ranks and questioning some measures that have been taken by government. And I think, Clement, this has got a lot to do with the attitude that government itself has displayed in managing this lockdown. Government prefer a unilateral approach here. They locked out opposition parties. They did not initially see any role that opposition parties could play within this. Remember, initially when the DA suggested the idea of an oversight committee, which I think Parliament, through the Speaker, poured cold water on that. So it has come to a point where now the governing party is seen as taking a unilateral approach, excluding opposition parties. And certainly, if it goes this way, opposition parties are going to seek method of being part of this. And usually, they start asking this type of questions. They start saying, we are going to court to start questioning some of the decision. Unfortunately, it has to do with the attitude of government.
Ralph, I remember how the President Cyril Ramaphosa would normally consult the political parties before any major decision is taken. When the lockdown was extended, for instance, the President had a virtual meeting with various political party leaders. So is that not enough for them? How big a role do you think they want to play in the decision-making structures and so that consultation goes beyond the President coming and saying, this is what we've decided, I want to let you know before I tell the country, but more of, is this okay? What are your inputs?
Clement, there is an issue of principle that I think can be explained in two ways here. The first is about pursuing this in the spirit of consultation. And when I say the spirit of consultation, I don't mean to say you put 5 minutes to briefing opposition parties where it is a one-way street, where you are actually outlining what is government's plan, and you are not taking any feedback from them. You are not saying that they can actually contribute towards the crafting of the plan that will be implemented by government in responding to this. And I think that is what we have seen. This is the type of consultation that people will say is perfunctory. It's just a tick box. It does not come with the spirit of saying opposition can actually contribute to this thing. The NGOs can actually contribute to this thing. And government has come under heavy criticism from that. And I think if we look at that in principle, there seem not to be that level of commitment, that kind of commitment from the side of the opposition parties. That spirit is not coming from the side of government to say opposition parties can contribute to this. So opposition parties are just suspicious that government seem not to be forthright with them. Even those that are quiet, Clement, that are pledging support, that are quiet. Yeah. My fear is that if government comes out as failing out of this, the consequences will be very severe. They'll start saying that, oh, we told you so, you took it upon yourself. There is no sense of collective ownership of the results here. And I think that is what should worry government.
But is what they're expecting, Ralph, unreasonable here? Because at the end of the day, the ANC is the governing party. Cabinet sits, and what the presidency tells us is that they ratify some of the decisions taken by the National Command Council. Government has been taking big decisions on big matters before anymore without opposition parties coming and giving their input before those decisions are taken. So are they not asking for what's unreasonable here?
Well, these are very extraordinary circumstances. These are not the normal circumstances where decisions flow through the normal processes. In most cases, actually, government is being given much more power to lead here decisions are being made very speedily, and I think that that on its own does help government to extend that executive hand. The question is government being excessive in yielding to this crisis, the manner in which it is extending its executive hand? Does it show the spirit that it believes in the principle of co-governance, where NGOs, where other role players, where business is actually being listened to? I think that is what people are looking for. People are now looking for the bona fide of government in managing this, the trustworthiness. How much would it want to yield to other partners here? And for me, Clement, it's not about government succeeding in this. It's about finishing crossing that finishing line with the people. That is what matters a lot.
And some people may argue, Ralph, that that social compact has been there from the beginning, and maybe not more so now. But, I mean, we've seen visuals of President Cyril Ramaphosa meeting not only with political parties, but the president has met with NGOs, he's met with, just various, not just political parties, but various business organizations as well. Labor has also been in consultation and been consulted here. But I want to ask you about where it started to fall, where we started seeing this support breaking. Does it have anything to do with what we've seen around this struggle and the confusion around the ban on the sale of tobacco products? Because, as I said earlier, we've had such councils before, right? On ESCOM, on big issues that are facing the country. ESCOM, we've seen government appoint a council. Political parties are not involved there. We've seen even on gender-based violence, for instance, where such councils and bodies are appointed. Does this have anything to do with that reversal of the sale on the ban of tobacco products?
I think it is a multiplicity of issues here. It cannot just be about tobacco. And also the question of tobacco is not just about smoking and about smokers. It is about the legitimacy of decisions and about how government explain their decision as part of these lockdown measures. When government come out as being arbitrary in its decisions, even if it might be right, I mean, I will tell you this, in a society where people smoke less, chances are that they're going to live better and so forth. But do you need to undertake that kind of policies in a way that shows that you have got no trust on your people? You are not showing to them that this is the legitimacy, this is the basis upon which I've made this decision. I followed this step by step of thinking. So it comes down to that. It is about actually being minimalist, even where you have authority. Even where as government the legislation allows you, the cardinal point of departure should be how many people am I going to go with on this one? You should be trying by all means to march with the people. It's not about coming up with legislations and promulgating them. What is the point of legislations that people believe that they are being arbitrarily decided upon? And hence you see people being recalcitrant and not willing to abide by the rules. It's about protecting the legitimacy. And I think that is where the opposition comes in, Clement. It will be a travesty where different parties start winning multiple court victories against this, because at the end of the day, the court is going to start saying to government that, oh, by the way, as part of this court order, give us your program on how your police are going to behave. And in that way, this is how governments start losing legitimacy. And I think we don't want to get there. And how do you avoid getting there? De-escalate, opt for communication instead of arbitration.
Yeah, and I mean, some may argue that it will also be a travesty if we see political opposition parties not acting as opposition parties, because that's also their role, to criticize where they see fit, where it's rational to do so, which leads me to this question then, because some people have come out to criticize some of the opposition party leaders who are speaking out about the powers of the National Command Council and whether or not this extended lockdown is warranted or not. People like John Steenhuisen, some people call him dramatic now. They say he's irrational. He hasn't thought this through. But how critical is that role of opposition parties during this difficult time where, as you said, decisions are made very fast, but you still need opposition parties to play that critical role of being in opposition and saying, this is probably wrong, let's question how these decisions are taken?
Well, Clement, there is no doubt that we are in a very tense moment, and when a moment such as this arises in any society, psychologically people tend to rally behind one leader. We have seen this during moments of wars, Second World Wars and so forth. People tend to want a single point where authority seems to be exercised. So I think the opposition actually battled with this in the first week of the lockdown, where morally for them, possibly they've had to ask themselves, was it the right time to speak? Should we be speaking, or are we going to come out as being unpatriotic? So I have respect for the opposition, and I believe that in South Africa, the opposition, the non-government organization, they are fundamental contributors towards policies. And let me give you this example, Clement, so that we do not forget as South Africans. The world's biggest antiretroviral program that has ever been adopted by any country is here in South Africa. Where does it come out of? It comes out of a court litigation between the non-government organization and government. Government takes credit for that, but other parties such as a non-government organization, NGOs, your Treatment Action Campaign, they also take credit to that. It also shows that if we allow the tension to exist in our society instead of blocking it between government, between the opposition, between the business, we allow, we manage it, we debate issues openly. What the net outcome of that, it is a policy that reflects the breadth of our society. We cannot shut down a conversation just because we are scared. That is not helping us anywhere closer to the solution.